from Vietnam to 9/11 to Israel. Global agendas shaping our world. This is the topic of the day. This is the massive story going on, as everyone knows, what's going on in Israel with Hamas, allegedly Iran helping. A very messy story, a very sad story, one that we must talk about, and one that related to a video and article we just posted earlier this week as well. I find it interesting at a time when bond markets are cratering and yields are rising, a crash of the global economy. Really, truly, we once again find ourselves in a situation where leaders are telling us that another 9/11 has happened and we need more funding, more military, and more lives put at stake. The U.S. just unfroze $6 billion for Iran. This is not the first time, right? We had, during the Obama administration, giving hundreds of millions, I think it was $400 million in cash on pallets. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, it was $400 billion, but that seems a lot. I think it was $400 million. And now Iran potentially, just days later, just weeks later, helping Hamas, possibly been planning this for a long time, but giving the green light, and Hamas carrying out this grotesque massacre in Israel. Makes me think, quite honestly, of the Ukraine-Russia war. Makes me think of the September market seize-up in the repo market before the COVID lockdowns. And again, I'm reading off, you can see the link in our bio here to our Substack, that I'm reading off of the article that I attached here. This is the article that I wrote for this video, so you can go check out the written version there. It makes me think of those things, that the Ukraine war, the September market seize-up before the lockdowns. It makes me think of the Afghanistan war and the moronic pullout there, that we now allegedly have weapons being used here against American citizens. 14 of them, I think, so far gone. 1,000 Israeli citizens. It looks like. I'm guessing it'll be more as we go through the days here, unfortunately. And it makes me think of, again, Operation Fast and Furious. Eric Holder, the Attorney General under Obama, in 2010, I believe it was, 11, 12, running guns to Mexico. Operation Fast and Furious, running guns. An American intelligence agencies or government agencies running guns to make it look like that guns were ending up in cartel members' hands. And again, I didn't look up a couple of these bits of info, so trust but verify these. But I believe one of the AKs that was run by Eric Holder, by his cronies into Mexico to make guns look bad here in America, like we need to get rid of guns, or preempting things to try to push gun legislation, ended up in the French massacres in the cafe that I think killed 100 people. So government, this is why we rail on government so much. Government is not incentivized to do anything appropriately, really, right? Because they have the endless currency printer. This is why we talk about, this is why people give me crap a lot about talking about Bitcoin. But the only way I found over 20 years of being in politics and studying history and studying thousands of years of history, studying the Bible, studying all these things, is to fix the money. Jesus talked about it. The founding fathers talked about it. The issuance of money. You go on and on and on. The issuance of money back in the hands of the people, pure money we finally have with Bitcoin, is the only way to defund cronyism, to defund government, to defund bad people. When you have a government this big, it incentivizes more and more bad actors to come into said government and do illicit things. That's just the nature of life. The founding fathers wrote about this. Hundreds, thousands of pages, tens of thousands of pages of journals, Federalist Papers, for years, for decades, writing about this. Why we're going to give you this certain government, and this is what we're doing and why we're doing it. This is not new. We choose not to learn it. We choose to make the same mistakes over and over again. We choose not to teach our children in school. The last 100 years, the General Education Board, again, we have talked about. I will link to this article. I'll link to the article about how to uncover deception and how I do it. I'll also link to my General Education Board paper from 1902, where Rockefeller said we want doers, not thinkers. Completely overhauling the school system to memorization and to not critically think. And it's completely bastardized everything the last 121 years, and we are now living the consequences of that because people cannot critically think. So this reminds me very much so of the Ukraine-Russia war, of the September repo market seize-up in the bond market, and then led to massive printing. It reminds me of the Afghanistan war, reminds me of the Iraq war, reminds me of the Vietnam War. These wars that we had to fight, we just had to do. Communism was going to spread from China down to Vietnam. Okay, wonderful, great. Like, what are we doing here? You know, our founding fathers again warned us about inserting ourselves into other people's business. They did that themselves, though, when it actually directly affected themselves, though, right? The Marine Corps hymn from the seas, the shores of Tripoli, you know, the Barbary pirates. You know, these things do happen, but we consistently are inserting ourselves into every walk of life around the world because we have the world reserve currency. Again, it's based on the dollar and now the petrodollar. So we keep inserting ourselves into these issues because we're trying to control everything in life, and that's just not possible. That's God's job, not the United States' job. We need to focus on our own borders, on our own families. Sean Whalen had a great post the other day about this very thing, about this is so sad, seeing what's going on. We need to start focusing on our own families, because our own families are crying out for help. The mental health issues, the suicides, and on and on and on, the broken families, the drugs. Our own families are crying out for help. We're too worried about what is going on the other side of the world always, not just right now. And this is, you know, two things can be right. And I know I'm going to get flack for people saying, like, how can you not be compassionate? How can you not be empathetic? Look, we have to go to the root cause. We have to stop putting band-aids on bullet holes. We have to. We have to have enough intelligence to say, this is terrible what's going on over here. But we also, more importantly, have to, if everyone's doing the 10 rules, right, the 10 commandments, as I've joked, well, the joke before, the little lady visiting the prison, and she'd visit him, and, you know, the inmate says to the sister, the nun, says, you know, sister, you know how many rules are that put me in this place? And she just looks at him and says, yeah, I know. You know, there's only 10 that will keep you out. And if we focused on that, if we focused on doing what was right, finding out what was right, but doing what was right, following those 10 rules, these things wouldn't matter. Bitcoin wouldn't matter, right? Money actually wouldn't matter. None of this stuff would matter. But we as humans, with original sin, tend to have a very big problem with sinning, with evil, with wanting to hurt others in order for us to gain here on earth. And the thing that keeps coming to my head for months and months now is laying down your life and picking up your cross. And even if you're not religious, that means doing the right thing, putting someone else's life and other people's lives in front of your own. And again, these things are tough to handle sometimes because you think about, you know, putting on your own mask before you're helping others, like in an airplane, right? Or and you have to get yourself right before you can help others. So it's a balancing act you have to have in life. But it's doing what you can to help others and putting yourself in service of others while also taking care of yourself, making sure your own needs are met, obviously. But again, if we do help other people, if we help enough people, we will get what we need. As Jesus says, you know, look, the birds of the air, God feeds them. You know, they're not sitting there harvesting or sowing things, right? But He feeds them. Don't you think He'll surely feed you? And I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but you know, I'm not trying to get super religious. I wasn't meaning to necessarily in this video. I'm going off script a little bit, but it's such an important thing to understand that if we were just doing the simple things right, the truth right, a lot of these things would just go away. All these things would just go away. And I think that's what many people are understanding and starting to realize now. I think that's what the younger generations, for all the faults the younger generations have, I think the younger generations are starting to realize and starting to turn towards truth and reality. So you can see where I'm going with all this. The atrocities that took place over the weekend in Israel and what have been going on here are inexcusable and horrific. And that's an understatement, truly. But more than one thing can be true in any situation, like I mentioned. Why are we constantly being led around by our noses and being told what to do, how to think, and what the media and what needs to be done, and when all these things have to be done, and is led, and it, well, I can't even talk, and what needs to be done, when all of these things need to be done, and all it's done is led to more violence, slaughter, money transferred from the people, the 99% to those at the top, more unrest, more polarization, and more division. That's it. Why should I continue to trust government leaders and bankers around the world who continue to show they have no regard for the people they are apparently supposed to serve? Why? Why? I'm not saying that I have the right answer, nor could I ever find it on my own. But that's the problem. None of us can. We go about our day hoping and believing that people in positions of power, much greater than ours, have our best interests at heart. If someone is willing to cheat you in a board game of Monopoly, or on a video game. That means nothing in the grand scheme of life. Then do you think that the people at the highest levels of power and influence and media aren't going to cheat you and lie to you for their own gain? Really, I think that may be the most important question. I run into so many people who say, I just can't believe that the government would do that to us. I just can't believe there's people that would do that to us. I just can't believe. Well, look at Israel right now. Look at Ukraine. Look at Russia. Look at Hamas, Iran. Look at these places. Believe it. You might not like war, but war likes you. And until we understand we're in a war, we're in a culture war, a bio war, an information war, and on and on and on, we're going to have a bad time. As the great Salzburg writers once wrote. People are there to deceive you and lie to you. Some people, that's their job. Because we're not following, we've let sin and darkness crater and harden our hearts. The devil is among us, believe me. If we don't believe in evil, then just look over what's going on right now. But we also know the law of polarity. There must be an equal and opposite side to that, right? Pure good, pure greatness. This is precisely why the Constitution and the Bill of Rights were created, to separate powers and make it very hard for people to get things done, putting the power back in the hands of the people instead of those at the top. This is also why I have advocated so strongly for Bitcoin, like I mentioned earlier, and sound money over the years, over the last 12 years, and will continue to do so. An incorruptible force, rules over rulers, because those rulers cannot be trusted, clearly. We have a constitution, we have a Bill of Rights, these wonderful things, but if they're not followed, then it doesn't matter. The power of the purse is how all of these wars are created and all of the boondoggles are orchestrated. As Thomas Jefferson knew, the issuance of money needs to be back in the hands of the people. An issuance of money that cannot be corrupted by men, but instead is enshrined in code, virtual stone. Until this changes and the money is put back in the hands of the people, these horrible events will continue in front of our eyes. Like I said many times, many of you that have been here for a while have heard me say things will get worse before they get better. They will get worse, as we see right now in these wars going on. Financially, things will get worse. I'm telling you now, things will still get much worse. I can guarantee it, because we are a collapsing system that no one wants to admit. No adults in the room. Keeping us in fear. All these things designed, many of them, to keep us in fear and perpetually pissed off so that we can throw more laws, Patriot Act, and more money, bailouts, quantitative easing at the problem and give ourselves a false notion. Creating Department of Homeland Security, 240,000 people in total over the last 20 years, 20,000 a year, adding more government, adding more bureaucracy, more red tape, just throwing stuff at problems instead of actually doing the work, instead of actually being smart and being logical about things. Giving ourselves this false notion that we are actually doing something when all we are doing is enshrining power to the few at the top. I pray for the souls and the families of those affected in Israel. On both sides. I pray for the innocent people on both sides. Many people affected, obviously families, broken apart, torn apart. Brazen, unprompted attacks on civilians should not happen and should never happen. To solve these problems, we must zoom out to start solving these complex issues and get to the root of the problem where get to the root of the problem where the problems themselves manifest. A lot of them largely in government, creating problems just to put their own fires out, to take more power and money from the people creating the problems to then justify them taking more money and power from you to say, hey, look, well, we can fix this problem. If you are looking for more, there is some reading here on the which I'm showing the pictures here, which again on the link in the blog, that'll absolutely blow your mind. These books on what is happening in the world and a new way to look at it all. Some of these books, two of them published 30 years ago and researched for decades before that. One of them brand new, The Psychology of Totalitarianism. That's a new one about mass formation and psychological operations going on. And then The Conspirators' Hierarchy, Committee of 300. About the apparatus for the last couple hundred years that is controlling everything we are seeing in life, quite honestly. People don't want to believe it. I don't know how long it's going to take for people to truly believe that these things are happening. Evil does exist, and people do want power and total control over people, and it goes even deeper and darker than that. And then The Creature from Jekyll Island, the history of the Federal Reserve, and the point of central banks and central banking, which is the fifth plank of the Communist Manifesto. And the sixth, by the way, is control of the means of communication. So on and on and on. You can go check these books out, these four, And I'll link to this here as well. And again, if you want one of the answers, which I think is the answer, this is one of the best books by far about the answer for anyone who doesn't understand Bitcoin and who is trying to get in it, is new. Maybe it's a religious person, maybe it's not, doesn't even matter. This is an unbelievable book, probably the best Bitcoin book I've ever read, and it's thin. It's only like 150 pages or something like that, 130 pages. Incredible book. Go check those 5 books out, but go to the link in my bio to go check out the written version, and you'll see the books there. We must stop putting band-aids on bullet holes, thinking there is some magical solution. The time for change is now. The current system cannot be fixed by the current reality. As Jeff Booth says, as the old saying goes, the thinking that got us here cannot be the thinking that gets us out. Stay strong. And again, I will link to the 10 ways I help myself discover truth and uncover lies with media, academia, politics, etc. I will link to that here as well, in here, the video and the article I did on that earlier this week as well. So I appreciate you coming to my TED Talk. Please share this out because the algorithm cannot stand truth. Trust everything I said here. Verify some of the things I said, obviously, and question everything in boldness, even the existence of God himself. And I think that's the point of this. Question everything. Question what you're being told. Question what you're seeing. Why do these financial things keep happening? Things are about to just tank, and all of a sudden we see wars breaking out. And we see all these things going on. It's a pattern. It's a pattern, as I alluded to at the top. It doesn't mean that there wasn't a sickness going around. It doesn't mean that people aren't getting hurt. That's the point. That they're true. Please do your own research. Read these books. I beg you. Please read these books. Please share this out. We have to start questioning things. We have to start not taking every person at their word. Trust what I'm saying, but verify it. Trust what other people are saying, but verify it. Let's do 5-10 minutes of our own research. And again, that other article, the other video goes through 10 ways that I do that. Simple things. So anyway, I appreciate you more than you know. This is not financial advice. It is freedom advice. And I'll see you on the next one.